Did you know that doing this makes noise? If the enemies are constantly just guessing right, or you swear you didn't move, then it could be that you're actually making the first of 25 R6 mistakes that 99% of players make. Every time you spin more than roughly 25 degrees, your character will change their stance, giving off an audible footstep. This audio is telling the opponents exactly where you are, revealing your position. That's why staying still and holding the same angle is crucial when hiding in these rat spots. Now, some of the ideas in this video will challenge deeply held beliefs that you might have had about R6, and your belief in how wrong I am might actually piss you off. But instead of giving into that rage and heading straight into the comment section, I'm asking you to be open to changing your mind and reflecting on the things that I'm saying. That's really the secret to uncovering the massive amount of potential that this video has for you and your R6 game, not by remaining in denial of it. Now, let's go make some mistakes together. Leaning with shields isn't a belief challenging mistake, but it is a mistake nonetheless. Leaning as a shield actually exposes your body more, making you easier to land chip damage on. If you're going to be cringe to win, which I highly recommend doing, then do it right and don't lean. If you're playing Thorn or Ella, there's a good chance you put your mines or razor blooms on common attacker routes, giving you information and maybe even hoping that you'll get a kill. However, this is a small mistake because operators like Legion, Melusi, Fenrir, or even just a piece of barbed wire can do it much more effectively. By doing it with Thorn or Ella, you're throwing potential value down the drain. And the reason is this: because of their quick gadget deployment, they are both super effective when used on the fly throughout the round to make plays or get aggressive back on the attackers. Having to dodge a razor bloom or getting concussed right before a gunfight is a major disadvantage, and it's one you can use to be much more effective with both of these operators. I see more terrible castle setups than I do good ones, and that's because castle barricades are capable of helping both teams. A bad castle is even more effective than Aurora Door, being harder to retake by defenders and more reliable as a flank watch for the attackers. The general rule is this: if a castle barricade is giving the attackers free space in the map, it's not helping your team, it's actually hurting it. The safest option for castle barricades is exterior doorways and windows, or a complex setup that creates new lines of sight the attackers won't expect. Goyos can have the same problems, with attackers actually using them against you to lock you out of the sight or block off your rotates. If you're barricading doors and placing Goyos on them, it's essentially the same issue that bad castles have, which is again why doing it on exterior entrances and doorways is the safest option. When it comes to Claymores, using them for runouts is the best strategy, but a lot of players make the mistake of placing them beside the doorways. While placing them like this buys you a little bit of time, most defenders are smart enough to check for it before running out. This is a minor mistake, but it could be costing you easy kills, as placing the Claymore directly into the doorway will set a trap for the defenders. The barricade blocks the lasers from poking underneath it, but the second a defender rips or punches it down, the lasers will extend out through the doorway and instantly nuke them. Honestly though, Claymores are one of the weakest secondary gadgets. The mistake players make is constantly picking them over other strong utility like grenades and flashes. I noticed that even in Champion, people do this all the time. Don't get me wrong, Claymores are good for specific plans and on certain sites, but because of their lack of versatility, many times they go just completely wasted. Compared to other secondary gadgets, they're at the bottom in terms of power levels, while the other throwable gadgets are all much better for playmaking regardless of the site you're attacking. Let's take this same idea and apply it to shields. Shields are extremely good for obvious reasons, even though you might think that they're cringe. But remember, Monty and Blitz also have the option to bring smoke grenades. What this means is that they can get close up on defenders and take space a lot easier by blocking lines of sight, keeping them more protected and making them more powerful. So why on earth do the majority of players constantly run hard reach tools or EMPs on Monty and breach charges on Blitz? It's understandable for certain sites and with certain lineups, but to default away from smoke grenades on these two is undeniably a huge mistake. Another big mistake is playing Nock in 2026. She is still the worst operator in the game. Her gadget is essentially doing nothing because the defenders can still hear you on the cameras, meaning if they have half a brain, they'll know you're there regardless of whether you're invisible or not. If you really want to sneak past cameras, just play Dokkaebi. Her calls will kick the defenders off the cams while giving you audio on where they are and covering the sound of your footsteps. This will also help your team at the same time, creating way more value than Nock could ever dream of. The only time Nock's ability actually works is if you get into a position where the cameras can see you and then you just don't move whatsoever in order to make zero noise. But this is just another way to to describe baiting your ass off, which isn't a great strategy when it comes to attack. Despite baiting your ass off being a terrible strategy, it's still the staple play of the average Kali player, posting up somewhere and just begging the defenders peek them while praying that the hit registration actually works. And if it wasn't clear already, this is a big fat huge mistake, as you're not gaining map control and you're relying on over-aggression from the defenders in order to actually create value. Kali can be a fine pick, but that's only when you're up in the action, taking space with your team and using the lance to destroy defender utility. On the defensive side, most players make the mistake of hoarding their utility. Smoke players won't use a single smoke unless the other team is planting or if it's the last 30 seconds of the round. This results in a lot of rounds being played where you don't use any smokes at all and create zero value as a result. It's why you'll instead want to use the smokes to waste that time early in the round, extending out and blocking off attacker entrances. This also lets you get into stronger close range positions with the pump for some easy kills. Smoke's the perfect operator to create value every single round if you play them right. By waiting until the end of the round to use the smokes, you're missing out on a massive amount of potential. The exact same concept applies to Echo and is another huge mistake that most players are making. They post up their drones on site and wait until the end of the round to try and stop the plant. But what happens when they shoot the drone, or there's too much time left and you're not able to win? The value of the drones has now been wasted when you could have used them earlier in the round to help your teammates stay alive, get kills, or waste time then. By using them early, you're guaranteeing value out of them. By saving them for later, you're risking the chance that by the time you use them, it's too late to actually matter. So use them early on outside of the map to pick off key players, or drone a teammate around and call out for them. When you see an attacker, cause a distraction with the yokai while your teammate takes the fight. This is how you can get more value every single round. Almost every play you'll make in this game requires one thing: information. Whether it comes from the sound of a footstep, a trap going off, or literally seeing the enemy with your eyes, information is what lets you make smart plays and good decisions. But almost every player neglects the number one source of information: the default cameras. Some people check them throughout the round, and even more will get on them once they're dead, but nearly nobody takes a look at the default cams at the very start of the round, and that is a huge mistake. Using the outside default cams immediately lets you figure out what side of the map the enemies are coming from based on which cams have been shot. If any areas are completely safe, the outside default will still be up and you won't see anyone on it. Any area that's a potential threat, the cam will be shot or they forgot to, and you'll literally see them on the cam. Just this information of where they spawn lets you reposition immediately, contesting every inch of the map the enemies try to take, which wastes more of their drones, more of their utility, and more of their time. This is a guaranteed way to create value and even take out attackers who don't drone at all with the simple power of positioning. Running the shotgun on Damos is actually a huge mistake. Hear me out for a second. To increase your chances of winning on attack, versatility is a key component. Versatility is what allows you to react to the defense, make plays, and be able to handle whatever strategy you might come across. The less versatile you are, the less options that you have, and the easier it is for the defenders to deal with you. Now let's apply this to Damos. The 44 Vendetta is absolutely lethal in the close range, dealing a ton of damage and being able to fire off shots in a rapid fire fashion while maintaining high mobility. This lets you swing aggressively onto defenders and tear through them extremely quick. The pump achieves the same thing, being incredibly strong in this close range. Both of these weapons give you the same result: close range dominance. But when it comes to longer ranges, the Vendetta's fall off damage means you're relying more on headshots and it loses out more often to SMGs and DMRs. Damos now has much less versatility when it comes to gunfights because his optimal range is only the close range when you have the pump equipped. However, by using the AK, you're giving yourself a tool to take long-range fights while still having the 44 Vendetta to dominate in the close range. His versatility is now higher and he's going to be stronger overall because of it. There are a ton of examples of this in Siege, like using the FMG-11 on Smoke or the MP5K on Mute. It's the same concept as using Claymores all the time instead of the more versatile grenades or flashbangs. The more that you can stack these advantages and maximize your value, the easier everything else becomes. So beware of the Damos shotgun trap and beware of limiting your versatility. Glaz nades. That's a mistake. Glaz is an operator whose only ability is a thermal scope. Without using smoke grenades, there is no ability besides a scoped and banana people DMR. If you're relying on Glaz's scope to see people, it's either time to get a bigger monitor or give up on your hopes of hitting a higher rank. If you can't see, you can't shoot back. You gotta shoot back in a first-person shooter. However, this game has a lot of strategy, and the smokes are what enable Glaz to use his ability well. While only having 2 smokes does limit Glaz's power levels compared to other ops, you absolutely need them in order to be self-sufficient as an operator. Relying on teammates to smoke for you is a great way to end up in a situation where they waste them accidentally or get spawn peeked before getting a chance to use them, leaving you with a wasted operator pick and relying only on your gun and some grenades to get the job done. Now, if you need an operator for flank watch, you're probably picking Gridlock or Nomad. And no, that's not a mistake, that's actually very smart, very good job, good for you. The mistake here is only playing these operators as flank watch. Nomad and Gridlock are extremely strong when played aggressively. Nomad can use the air jabs to launch defenders out of cover right before she pushes, and Gridlock's tracks generate a ton of sound which mass footsteps and takes unprepared defenders by surprise. Too many rounds I see players who pick these operators being 100% invested in flank watch, missing out on the entire world of playmaking that both Nomad and Gridlock have. Alright, now it's time for a pop quiz. You've picked Kaide on the basement site of Nighthaven Labs, you put one claw on the single wall and one on the double. How can a single attacker counter this strategy? Okay, you might have come up with two different options. The first is Maverick, who can burn through the wall, completely ignoring the Electro Claw. The second, of course, it's Striker with EMP gadgets and hard breach tools, a classic and even more popular choice. But what if I told you that you're actually fumbling with Kaide and making one of the most common mistakes in the entire game, the placement of the Electro Claws? We're gonna hold these walls the exact same way, with one claw on each wall, but instead of placing the claw at the top or bottom, which is extremely predictable, we're going to place them halfway up the wall and as far to the left or right as possible while still getting all the panels. That way when Striker comes along thinking she's slick with the EMPs and hard breach tools, she's in for a big surprise when the EMPs do absolutely nothing. 99.9% of Striker players here will EMP the top and bottom of the wall, thinking the claws are there. When they do this, it won't work, leaving them stranded with hard breaches that can't even be used in an empty stock of EMP grenades. And if you want to take it a level further, you can just pick up and place down the Kaide claw the second it gets EMP'd to reset it and beat the timing on the hard breach tool. Not only is this a common placement mistake with Kaide, but it's also an extremely common oversight by attackers to rely entirely on EMP gadgets to get the job done. It's why Maverick is almost always the better option when it comes to solo breaching, having no direct operator counter. And if you can find just one reliable teammate, Thatcher will always win out against a Kaide, in which case Thatcher and Thermite is going to be the #1 option here. However, from my experience in the North American ranked trenches, a reliable teammate is much more rare than an unreliable one. Speaking of your terrible teammates, just mute them. When someone is talking trash to their own team, most people leave them unmuted, sacrificing their mental game in fear of missing pivotal callouts. This is a huge mistake, as these kind of players drain your focus and mental energy, making you play much worse. Honestly, these are just the worst kind of players. They rarely make any callouts, and they constantly use their mics to bring everyone else down. Muting them allows you to refocus on the game without worrying about what the guy is going to say while you're mid-clutch or mid-round. It's draining, it only makes you play worse, and realistically their callouts are going to be garbage a lot of the time and end up getting you killed. That's also why muting players applies to teammates who have really bad calls. There's no need to argue with them, call them stupid, or bring down their mental game by turning into the guy we just talked about. Instead, you can just mute them and move on, preserving your gameplay and preserving their mental. And here's the thing, by muting your teammates, they can still hear you, meaning you can continue to call out and provide value to your team that way. Have you ever felt though like your teammates are just the worst players of all time? Like, how are you even supposed to rank up when you keep getting, quite literally, the most dog water players you've ever seen while somehow always playing the best players in the world? It's actually insane at how much you are complaining about your teammates instead of being a good teammate yourself. I got you, bro. You are the problem. And thinking all your teammates are trash might be the most common mistake in all of Rainbow Six Siege. Your teammates would have a much easier time being good teammates if you started doing everything within your power to help them succeed. So instead of complaining that they run in and die on attack, start picking Finka, stim them, and use them as live bait to gain space and trade them out. Or start using your utility to create distractions on site, pulling roamers away from the roam and making it easier for your teammates to gain control in other areas. Having good teammates often just means being a good teammate yourself. It doesn't mean you have to play Thermite every round, it means you need to do anything at all that makes their jobs easier. Focusing on how terrible they are will only make it more likely that they continue to be terrible and that you refuse to adapt to how they play. And truthfully, if 99% of the player base thinks that they're in this boat of constantly getting bad teammates, how can that even work? Like, the math isn't math in here, guys. They're not terrible, you're just focused on their mistakes instead of yours. For example, you might be making the common mistake of acing breaches like this. This makes it so you have to vault in, which significantly reduces your mobility and gives the defenders a sound cue. Doing one of them crouched is better, but crouching through a hole also drops your mobility and puts you at a disadvantage in fights. Instead, stack the Selmas on top of one another to open one big hole that lets you push through it in various different ways. But who am I kidding? Ace is banned first every game anyway, and so is Mira. Honestly, I'm getting kind of sick and tired of it, guys. Ace is understandable. He's extremely versatile, has the best gun in the game, and is an S tier pick on any site and any map. But Mira? She's good, don't get me wrong, but she's not the #1 ban on every single map. Stop making the mistake of lazily banning operators because you're too busy scrolling TikTok, and instead think about the ban in the strongest operator for that map. Actually working your brain to plan ahead and think about these things will help you develop the crucial skill of planning that most players are missing. Okay. So less Mira bans, got it. Now that that's out of the way and you might actually get a round in on Mira, let's talk about the most common mistake with her. You spawn into a round, go reinforce your wall, and plop that Mira down right away. Okay, good to go, but is there any way that this could possibly be a mistake? Well, it's not a mistake necessarily, but more of a mediocre choice and just has better options, because by doing this, you're leaving a pile of opportunity and value on the table. Doing this allows the attackers to drone it out in the prep phase and plan around it, pick ops to counter it, and destroy the window much easier. However, by simply waiting until the prep phase is over, attackers have to re-drone to safely find the windows without walking into them, and might not have the utility to actually counter it. This could force them to rotate somewhere else instead of simply choosing a different spawn like they could have done in the prep phase. Knowing where a Mira window is as an attacker gives you the opportunity to clear it immediately and not have to worry about it for the rest of the round. And as Mira, you can just wait to put these down as long as you want. You can check cameras at the start of the round because you're going to start doing that now, right? Good, because once you do, you can see what side of the map they're pushing and place your windows to counter that specific push. All of a sudden, Mira goes from a top operator to a consistently annoying and threatening operator that the attackers are forced to deal with every single time. For my last operator gripe, Lion players. I swear, people pick Lion just to feel like they're doing something. Calling a Lion scan with zero motive is a massive mistake that nearly every person makes when playing Lion. You need to use the calls as your team is pushing the site or to take space off of drones. A Lion scan buys you time, and by droning something out to see if it's clear and then calling a scan, you're decreasing the odds of a defender rotating into that position during that time window between getting off the drone and actually taking the space. Lion can be good, but he's super overrated by players who are constantly making this very obvious mistake. The biggest mistake of all across all time and space of Rainbow Six Siege is locking roles to operators. Vigil and Cav are roamers, while Smoke and Echo are anchors. While thinking of the operators like this can be helpful for knowing what operators are good for what jobs, it can also be harmful when it comes to maximizing your value. Like we showed earlier, Echo can be a top tier roamer, but Cav can also prove to be a perfect anchor, hitting short flank routes and repositioning with her silent step on areas that the attackers are relying on sound for. Instead of thinking of operators locked into these roles, think of each one as a different tool to achieve a specific task. A hammer is used to pound nails, but in reality, it's just a heavy piece of metal. That's why a hammer is also a perfect paperweight. It may not have been designed to be a paperweight, but if you need something to hold your paper down, a hammer will definitely do the trick. In the same way, Smoke isn't an anchor, the smokes are just a perfect tool to hold space and stop pushes. While this of course applies to the bomb site, it also applies to everywhere else on the map, meaning he can hold strong position with the tools he provides. And for our final mistake, some players run this charm or this fucking thing. What the fuck is that? But what most players don't know is that your charm radiates aura and actually affects how you play the game. And because of this, there's one charm that helps you make the best decisions, brings you perfect seed chiming, and reminds you to be a good teammate, helping you win more so you can finally rank up. That charm is the Poxonlox charm, of course, constantly reminding you that Daddy Poxonlox is watching over and judging your every move. You better make the right play, you better do the right thing. If you want to finally see those results you're looking for, then go subscribe over on Twitch to get it. If you have Amazon Prime, you can link your account and get a free Twitch subscription every month, and you only need to subscribe once to get it for life, people. Now anyway, stop making these mistakes and start doing what I talked about in this other video where I cover the best tip for every single operator in Rainbow Six Siege in just 10 minutes. Okay, sick. See you over there. Bye-bye.